planning expenditures. It includes all of our major accomplishments. Essentially, it's what you want to look through if you want to see what we've done over the last 6 months. The highlights of it is we completed 4 technical assistance projects. We completed our regional truck parking study, 3 ADA transition plan initiatives, the 2023 trail count program report. We have 1 linkage study we recently completed and 3 others that are pretty close. And we initiated the regional Vision Zero safety action plan. So with that, I don't believe we need a motion for that.
Great.
Yep.
We don't have anyone registered to speak, but if there is anyone who wants to speak, the floor is now open. Okay. So next on our agenda, we're going to have a presentation of the Reimagine 787 health study and the initial concepts.
And Greg, you can go ahead and share your screen.
There it is. All right, I had to find the unmute button. Good afternoon, everybody. Greg Wichser here with DOT, one of the co-project managers of the 787 Reimagine study. And I'm happy to run through the concepts with all you folks, for those that haven't seen them yet. Let's see, as we know, 787's steeped in long transportation history from 200 plus years ago of the Block 1, and moving on to a couple hundred years later, some railroad transportation, and on to today of what we all know as 787 and the Dun. I show this picture as part of the history of why the Dun was built the way it is. Our famous stub into Rensselaer was meant to intended to connect to an arterial out to I-90. And then in addition, there were some various plans within the city of Albany for other arterials, some of which were thought to go underground. I just lay all this out for context of how something was built that, just seems the capacity is way beyond what it ever saw. And it was because of these bigger plans in the area that never came to fruition. So I'm not going to go through all the public comments here in the interest of time. I want to get to the concepts for the group, but in general, since the beginning of the study last summer, this is a summary of the comments before the May 1st open house so far. In general terms, we heard a lot about a desire for better waterfront access, of course, economic development, bike ped connectivity, urban design considerations, and then various concepts from the public's viewpoint of what they thought the road should be, which will feed into what we're going to talk about a little bit. And then other items from natural, cultural, and environmental resources. And then, of course, traffic concerns. We have a facility that does handle a good volume of traffic in and out of the city of Albany and Rensselaer here. And the cities of the north, it all goes up and down the whole corridor. Those comments and the infrastructure condition and the status all feed into the purpose, needs, and objective statement. And this is all proposed, and this will all be vetted through the report. And at the end of the report, it's going to remain a proposed purpose, needs, and objective statement all the way until an eventual EIS is started. But we vet it now so that we can so it feeds right into the future processes seamlessly. And the concepts, the meat of the presentation here. Here's a list of them that we're going to run through, but I might as well get to the concepts as they are. So the first one, I will say I did skip over the null alternative and rehabilitate as is, because that's what we all know is there. So I could skip over those. This is the first reconstruction concept to rebuild I-787 as an interstate, and in theory meeting or upgrading to existing design standards. One key feature here to point out is that by replacing the Dunn Memorial with and this option shows a single point urban interchange. this would collapse the stack into a single plane, still elevated, but much lower, which then leads to the South Mall Expressway could run downhill and touch down at grade at Pearl Street and become a boulevard for two city blocks between Pearl Street and the Empire Plaza. So that's a key feature in this concept that carries in some form at this idea or better in the future concepts I'll discuss. 4 boulevards. In this first one, we call it 2 ways west of the railroad. So this would take all of the infrastructure of all of the highway infrastructure and move it to the city of Albany side of the railroad and create a boulevard on that in that area. This, of course, does free up, what is there today on the waterfront side. It would also, this one moves the Dunn Memorial, I dare say, the least amount, just to the south. And some other features here shown of interchange configurations to try to, again, get after reducing the footprint. Obviously, this would be signalized and much lower operating speeds. Boulevard 2, this one, in theory, would convert Broadway. The key feature here is where Clinton Street comes out near the Albany Skyway and then would turn all southbound traffic left on Broadway, converting that to a one-way street. So it's basically a one-way pair where southbound is 1 block away from the northbound direction. So this one, there's some advantages to it, but also some disadvantages. But we wanted to show various iterations of boulevard concepts to get, all parties' reactions to these. This one, again, only moves the Dunn Memorial a little bit to the south. And again, the key feature, same with the previous boulevard and the interstate, the South Mall Expressway would still touch down about Pearl Street. Boulevard 3 is the only concept where we show the railroad removed from the corridor. And I'll get to the challenges of that next. But in theory, we placed the north and south bounds about, I'd say, a partial city block apart from one another for theoretical land uses in between the boulevards. And the thought there is, if pedestrians are going to cross the boulevard, it would be a much improved situation if they could cross one bound at a time and then have some distance of refuge in a city setting to the other bound direction to cross. So that's Boulevard 3. And this one, we actually show the Dunn Memorial moving slightly north and in theory tying into the road straight to the Amtrak station. But of course, the pesky part of Boulevard 3 with no railroad is, how do you end up with no railroad? And the answer is that as nothing in the world is impossible. This is the probably most challenging item to implement based on their existing footprint, their right of way, and their operations. The railroad has indicated they do not want to move because the route they have now is very functionally beneficial to their network. And even in the theory of building them an entire track back to their own system in Schenectady is still an impediment and a highly undesirable outcome for the railroad. Never mind the expense and effort to construct a parallel track all the way. Did someone have a quick question, or I can make it to the end?
Nope, you can keep going.
All right, cool. Boulevard 4 is this one. The key feature here is that the Dunn Memorial moves approximately 1 mile south, where it would take off from the city of Rensselaer around the 9J interchange with Route 9 and 20, and then cross over some vacant land, and then touch down around the Port of Albany and some industrial areas within the city of Albany. Again, trying to avoid putting new infrastructure immediately adjacent to neighborhoods, specifically the south end. And this concept solves a few of the traffic problems while separating the city of Rensselaer traffic from the South Mall Expressway traffic. It makes operations work more efficiently in the corridor. And as you can see on both sides of the river, would free up vast amounts of waterfront and remove the stack of ramps on each side of the river in this scenario. The thing to note is the area around the existing Dunn and all the way to the South Mall, all of that area there would all be at grade in this scenario. There'd be nothing elevated. You wouldn't pick up elevation until you approach the Port of Albany to get up and then go over the river. Of course, one big question we're going to get is how do travel times change? In this graphic, which I know it's hard to read here, but the white is actually a reduction in travel time. The lightest blue is a net zero change. And then all the way up in B3, Boulevard 3, shows the most drastic travel time impacts to the north and east of a possible 5 to 6 minute increase. But most zones are 3 minutes or 4 minutes or less of a travel time change. And that's encouraging to be in the single digits of projected travel time changes in the year 2050. This isn't even day one travel time change. This is 2050 compared to the null. So it's encouraging traffic modeling, and the partnership with CRTC and to share their model with the consultant to be able to run all this has been very helpful. Another thing we utilize the analysis for is origin and destination to understand where traffic's going and coming from and going to. So as they enter the corridor from the north, this shows that 80% of the traffic exits within the city of Albany or to go to the city of Rensselaer, and only 20% making it out the south end of the corridor. And there's a similar northbound graphic on our website, but I just figured I'd illustrate one because this drives the conversation around the desired tunnel, which we heard a lot about leading into the study and throughout our commentary of how about a tunnel idea. Well, the tunnel is very expensive, regardless of the feasibility of water tables and resources you'd impact. If it only is going to take 20% of the traffic off the system, then you still need a whole surface street network to handle the 80% of the traffic that is going to both cities on each side of the river at this point. And never mind a $7 billion plus cost estimate. So then the next concept that is very popular and common is to create land bridges. If we can't eliminate the railroad from the corridor and you have to get across it somehow in a separated grade regardless, these land bridges are very wide pedestrian bridges that can feel more like a park than a bridge. These could gain some traction to get pedestrians across traffic with zero interaction with vehiculars, whether it's at a signal or not. It really is true that if you just simply separate the pedestrian crossings, that is the absolute safest option. I'm only showing 2 of the 3 land bridges that we cooked up. One up to the north near the existing pedestrian bridge at Jennings Landing, and this other idea down around the USS Slater. And these are just early layouts. Obviously, as things evolve, the layouts can change, and depending on what the exact built network could ever look like. One question for the public as we get the word out is, are you in favor of these locations we've shown? Are there other locations we should consider? Things of that nature, things we're looking for feedback on. Another common comment was about building a waterway canal into the city of Albany. Our friends at the Albany Waterway Group continually to use their motto of, instead of bringing the city to the river, bring the river to the city. So we did want to draw that option up for illustration. And there are some notes we put on the boards that illustrate some of the challenges to this concept, including a water source, because you need an upper pool or area on Broadway because it's 26 feet above the Hudson River. and you need a lock at each end to get up and down, or in and out of the city. Couple challenges, plus the creation of a canal instead of a city street would mean the traffic would have to be dispersed further into the city on the network, and improvements to other city blocks would be needed to handle traffic. Or we are backed into an interstate to simply handle the traffic in the existing configuration in a sort of perpetuity scenario. In a smaller ode to canal ideas, this is one option of three we drew up down at where the old lock one was, from the sketch of that slide one I showed. This is a theoretical small basin, inner harbor, down around lock one, or in the shadow of the central warehouse, which fortunately someday may not cast a shadow, I understand. So this is one idea. There were some other iterations of making it a smaller park with honor to the Lock One Canal, but all things we cooked up out of commentary and public input. So that's the major concepts we touched on. We also do have concepts up in Waterville and Menands to provide better access. There's the Menands 16th Street connector to the Hudson Shores Park that we've drawn up that seems to get some positive feedback. Long desired connection for Waterville to the Hudson Shores Park, as well as some little river ideas in the village of Menands. And we're discussing these things with all parties these days to figure out feasibility and the like. So we love getting the word out. Have folks go to the website, write to us on our email, call us. And we even have our phone number that ends in 1787, 457-1787. So with that, I tried to go really fast in the interest of everyone's time. Are there any questions from the audience?
Just real quick, this is all available from the website, correct? Everything you saw just now?
It absolutely is. Go, 787.dot.ny.gov, and all the open house materials are there. And the boards are bigger with more information, but for a presentation like this, I honed on the picture of the concept and left off the text for clarity.
Yes, this is Mike Stamel from the city of Rensselaer. At one time, they discussed with the bridge concept, with the bridge itself, either being a lift bridge or a turn bridge. Now I understand they don't want to have nothing but a straight bridge, which would, so boats could get underneath it. My concern is if you take the higher you make the bridge, the less you make the waterfront really available, because it'll take the view and stuff away. I was wondering if we're still looking at both with the bridge and the ramps. So I would lean towards encouraging to either have a lift bridge or a turn bridge, pretty much like the Livingston Avenue Bridge, lift preferably, to control traffic, if that's the concept you're gonna use, 1, 2, and 3. If it's concept number 4, where you take that 1 mile north and come into Rensselaer, I'm pretty much in favor of that. So are a lot of my constituents. The only thing is, I think we would have to talk to CDTA a little bit about access to the train station and some changes on that route off of 9J into the train station to change their parking around a little bit. But I think my biggest concern right now is with the bridge, though. With the closer to the water, I think the better it'll be for visual, to see the city of Albany, and for the city of Albany to see the Rensselaer without the higher ramps and all that other stuff. That's about all. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, Mike, and I've actually taken that question back to our team. And one piece of the equation is to figure out if we, especially to the southernmost alignment, how many boats from the Port of Albany would be coming and needing to navigate, turn around, dock in that zone, and how many openings would be needed to accommodate them. So that, but the northernmost ones are easier to consider, since I think generally they don't come that far north. And then the other layer to that is some traffic modeling of how often would it open and how long would traffic be stopped? What would that do to the network? So,
I live right on the river, with the river's my backyard, and the boat traffic is very minimal. Maybe a barge a week, and then only in the summertime would you get a couple of bigger boats, tour boats or something like that to go up to the canal.
no, that's great. And we're definitely, that's in the agendas of discussions for us. And do keep in mind, these are all, really routes we're mapping for feasibility. They did, like I said, they've assumed they're clearing the navigational channel, but through the process, they don't have to. But for traffic analysis and all that, they're just mapping the routes, and the elevation can come later. So,
Thank you.
yeah, appreciate that.
All right. If there are no other questions, we will move on. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate all the hard work that has gone into this.
Thank you all, and greetings from Utica.
So, next on the agenda, we have, some amendments to the tip that we need to, vote on. The first 8 amendments are from CDTA. I'm gonna kick it to you, Carm.
Thanks, Mayor. I can go through each one of these, but all of them are programming of our formula funds. This is routine stuff. As the year approaches, we get better estimates on what projects are going to cost us. For example, the first one is replacing star buses. We do that every year. We replace star vehicles, 40-foot vehicles. And that's a $600,000 line item. It's up to the committee. Do you want me to go through every single one of these, or the only one that's not on the TIP, that's in addition to the TIP? What is the last one? Mobility hubs. The programming, we were able to see $550,000 for this. They'll cost more than that. The mobility hubs, to refresh your memory, we built a large one in Schenectady this past year at the base of State Street. We're building 2 smaller ones this year, one in the Little Italy section of Troy, and one on Manning Boulevard adjacent to St. Peter's Hospital. It's our plan to build a number of these throughout the region, where we bring together our buses, our cars, our bikes in one spot with covered places to wait, heated, well lit, and connected to major facilities and downtown areas to make using all of our services a little bit more convenient. So that's what these package of projects are. Again, this money that's already programmed to the region.
Madam Chair, I have so many questions. I move the 8.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Linda. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. And now Carrie's gonna walk us through amendments 9 through 14.
Okay, so we are looking for approval of these new projects for the enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities grant that NYSDOT ran a solicitation for towards the end of last year, I think it was. These have not been approved by the planning committee yet. We just barely missed the deadline for the May meeting for these, but they do need to get into the federal grant before our July planning committee meeting, as soon as that happens. So what you're looking at is actually the recommendation from the regional review committee that we put together with the New York State Department of Health, the New York State Department of Transportation, their regional office, and then staff here. And again, I can go through each project, but they're all applications that were submitted under the 5310 program.
I make a motion. Use the package.
Question before we make a motion. How does this affect the budget for the TIP?
It
Is it?
does.
It's coming.
It's new money,
It's new money.
New money.
so it's
Parity. Okay,
it doesn't impact this.
okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion to move the entire package.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. And now Chris, you're gonna walk us through, we've got two resolutions that we need to vote on for the UPWP.
Yeah. This time I am gonna get it. Folks online should be able to see the screen now, so due to some new information and some changes, we have some proposed UPWP amendments. I'm just gonna go through the things that have happened since it was adopted. First, there's been a change in how our planning funds have been allocated from the FTA, so that has resulted in a decrease of around $10,000. Our complete streets set aside, about $16,000 was expended in the prior year. We also reduced consultant budgets to reflect expenditures during the month of March. And we were able to remove 2 completed linkage studies, one in Brunswick and one in Colony from the books. We are proposing to add $75,000 to the consultant budget for the MTP, which is a total of $250,000 contract. We are proposing to add 4 new ADA transition plan sponsors that were recommended by planning committee. These are for the city of Rensselaer, the town of Clifton Park, the town of Wilton, and the village of Manans. And finally, we received around $20,000 from DOE to further support our Clean Cities Coalition. Happy to answer any other questions, man. If not, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. Accept.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
All right, so now I'm gonna go through an update of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan update in motion, the plan to 2050. So this is a show of where we are as far as progress. We finished our phase 1 products, which was our congestion management plan, our coordinated plan, and other existing conditions information. We are now in phase 2, which is creating the branding for the project, our website, and the 2 items highlighted in red is what I'm going to go over today, which was the MTP issues priorities survey and the MTP draft goals. So our phase 2 of public outreach is currently underway. We're going to extend that through May 31st. We had an online survey, which we've received 182 responses. We had our Inform and Imagine virtual workshop, several press releases and social media posts. We distributed 27 library kits, most of those in rural areas. We had 2 train station pop-ups and 7 tabling events. This is just the distribution of the responses in the region, the darker red being more responses and the lighter pink being less responses. Just real high level, wanted to give you a snapshot of the results of what we heard from the survey. Looking in the top and the green are the top 5 priorities identified through the survey, and those are build sidewalks, bike lanes and trails, more transportation options, more frequent and reliable transit, safer roads and intersections, and fixed roads and bridges. Also wanted to point out down at the bottom, the lowest priority was to build more roads and highways. We asked them to identify places that they like, places that they find easy or pleasant to get around. A lot of the places mentioned were places you might imagine, like New York City, Washington, DC, Boston, Portland, Burlington, all the European cities you can probably imagine were mentioned at least once. But there were also some local places mentioned that I wanted to highlight, mentioned several times, including the city of Albany, the city of Saratoga Springs, the city of Troy, and the area, downtown area of the Del Mar area of Bethlehem, which I think is, interesting observation from that, as those are, all urban places. So now I'm going to move into talking about the draft goals and objectives. And I think the important thing to really note here is that these are draft. This is a starting point, not the ending point. We're expecting to change these. But today we're going to present them and then ask for you to release these to the public. We developed these using highlights and findings from our regional trends report, the input that we got from the public. State and regional plans and policies that we are supposed to be following. Reviews of our previous plans, and of course, input from our in-motion task force and from our planning committee. So there are 7 goals. And I'm gonna try to go through them as quickly as possible. The first is safety. The safety, and I'm not gonna read all the objectives, but for each goal, there are several objectives. For safety, the goal is to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on Capital Region roadways and increase the security of the transportation system. So this includes objectives like prioritizing safety for all users, prioritizing projects that lead to safer roads, prioritizing education and safety and cybersecurity best practices, and supporting protection of our users of our transportation system. And we wanted to note that we're going to update this goal when our regional Vision Zero Safety Action Plan priorities are developed so that they're in harmony. The second of the 7 goals is mobility, and this is ensuring the transportation system is maintained, operated, and coordinated to support reliable travel throughout the region. This including maximizing investment in the operation of our transportation system, rebuilding aging bridges and trying to reduce future maintenance costs, planning for evolving technologies for all travel options, prioritizing strategic integration of smart cities technologies, and trying to overall improve regional travel time reliability and the cost to our travel users. The third goal is access, and this is about improving transportation choices and access to key destinations for freight and for people, which includes connections, closing gaps in the system, not just for road gaps, but for bikes and peds. Improving transit access by investing in transit priority projects. Prioritizing low-cost improvements over very high-cost improvements, going for low-hanging fruit. Addressing barriers to the deployment of anything non-single occupant vehicle, micromobility, alternative fuels, things like that, and providing affordable transportation options to all users of the system. Goal 4 is equity, which is about achieving an inclusive transportation planning process and making investments that address transportation inequities. And the definition here is definitely much better than what I read, but just trying to be concise here. And it's about providing beneficial transportation outcomes, minimizing harmful transportation projects, and minimizing additional burden for disadvantaged populations from things like climate change, infrastructure failures, and also integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations into the transportation planning process. Goal 5 is livability, and this is making strategic investments in the system to support economic development, growth, and housing. So this is where we bring in the land use side of it, looking at prioritizing compact mixed-use development, transit-oriented development, prioritizing investments that serve employment centers, supporting the efficient movement of freight, incorporating housing into the equation, which is something that we haven't traditionally done as much as we are planning to, supporting the goals of the REDC, and supporting the planning process that reduces delivery times for projects, which is a hot topic right now. Goal 6 of 7 is climate. That's reducing the risks the region faces from climate change, improving air quality, and reducing emissions from transportation. And that's pretty much what the 3 objectives are. They're about, reducing carbon and greenhouse gas emissions, promoting zero emission vehicles, and investing in streets. And finally, goal 7 is resilience, and that's preparing for and protecting the transportation system from changing conditions and natural hazards, to responsibly manage the transportation system. And this is encouraging green infrastructure, identifying and prioritizing investments that improve resilience, protecting natural resources, and proactively planning for emergency response. So I realize it's a lot of information, 7 goals. Staff spent a lot of time working with our committees to develop these. And I probably didn't give them as much as they were due, presenting them very quickly here, but wanted to present them. What we're hoping to accomplish in this MTP process by the September policy board meeting is to get public input on the goals and infrastructure needs. It's one of the reasons why we're here today, asking for you to release the goals. We're looking to gather stakeholder input on infrastructure needs. So we will be reaching out to many of you, beginning to compile a list of illustrative projects, beginning to prepare a regional vision for this MTP. Our next in motion task force meeting is June 27th at 3 p.m. And at that meeting, we plan to introduce the consultant, and also we'll be gathering videos and photos. So that's the status of where we're at. That's the draft goals. Happy to try to answer any questions you have. And we are hoping to release the draft goals to the public for their review.
Can I have a motion just to release them for you?
I'll make the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, safe streets and roads for all.
You can go next slide. So this is the Vision Zero Action Plan, which is funded through Safe Streets and Roads for All, which is the Federal Highway Administration Grant Program, which is a direct award to us from FHWA. And I should note that our partners on the project, our funding partners, are the City of Albany, the City of Waterloo, City of Troy, the City of Saratoga Springs, and the Village of Green Island. So the key outcomes for the project are to build a shared vision of roadway safety in the capital region and establish interjurisdictional partnerships. And to develop a comprehensive safety implementation program. So in other words, fundable projects that we can build using ideally HSIP funding, but maybe also future SS4A implementation grants. And then to have annual reporting on the implementation program and on performance measures. Next. Just wanted to highlight this because it is a little bit different than the way we've done safety planning in the past. So the safe system approach is looking at safe roads, but also at safe speeds, safe vehicles, safe road users, and post-crash care. And I will note that the Colony EMS also received a Safe Streets and Roads for All implementation grant, actually, to look at some new technologies related to crash response. So we'll be working with them on their own work as well. And redundancy is really crucial, I think, as a difference to how we maybe used to think about planning next. So in the past, we would have looked at preventing all crashes. The focus now is on preventing death and serious injuries. Instead of saying we need to improve human behavior, we're designing for humans to make mistakes and also the limitations that the human body has related to crashes. Instead of controlling speeding, we're looking at reducing system kinetic energy, so that can involve speeding, but it is not just speeding. Instead of individuals being responsible to share responsibility. And that finally, instead of reacting based on crash history, while we do want to look at hotspot analysis, we also want to proactively identify and address risks where there may not have been crashes at that exact location. Next. As part of this project, we are required to have a target for an eventual goal of 0 roadway fatalities and serious injuries. We can do that one of 2 ways, either by just setting a target date to reach that 0, or by having 1 or more targets to achieve significant declines in roadway fatalities and serious injuries. I will note that significant, as far as I can tell, we get to self-define in that option, but it would need to have a specific date. So this is something that will be coming back to this group. We will be looking for you all to approve some kind of Vision Zero target. So if you have thoughts on this, those 2 options, and on the second one, what the details might be, please let me know, and we can include that as we move forward to drafting something for a target. Next. The planning structure for the project is the council staff and what we're calling our administrative committee, which is the entities that are contributing funding, which is the ones I highlighted earlier, and also the Department of Transportation, which provided the match for the initial Transportation Council application. Our Regional Operations and Safety Advisory Committee is what we're using as the study advisory committee for this project. the Community Advisory Committee, which we actually have a solicitation out for members right now. It's due next Friday and it's on the website. The application form, that is a paid position for attending the meetings. Stakeholder meetings, we're currently planning stakeholder meetings with school communities and law enforcement communities as part of the project, as part of what the consultant team is doing. But if you have other kind of groups, Complete Streets Advisory Committee is what we talked about in Troy, that you think would want to hear about the project, I can also just come and talk about whatever component of the project you might want me to talk about to that group. And then the general public workshops, and we do have a website with an interactive map on it. Next. So these are the tasks that are in the project. Most are what you might anticipate. I did want to highlight the task force speed limit. So we will be looking at creating recommendations for speed limit reduction down to the 25 mile an hour, which I'm sure you all know we can do that now. In Saratoga Springs, Schenectady, Troy, Watervliet, and Green Island. So we took Albany out because Albany already did their recommendations for speed limit reduction. We subbed Schenectady in for that. And then the task 7, the safety investigations, is more targeted safety investigations, and that's to really help us bring 40 projects on the local system, basically to fundability. And then updates that I have on task 3, the safety analysis for the hotspot analysis where crashes have happened. NYSDOT has actually been updating the underlying data that was used in the calculations that are symbolized on that map. And so our consultant team is going to refresh that either today or tomorrow. And we're going to resend out a note to all of you when that happens. So I believe you did get an email from us with an ArcGIS link to some safety stuff that's going to be updated. And a reminder to please contact Sandy if you have safety concerns in your municipality and you want to just talk to her about them in general. And also that the consultant team is really looking to talk to anybody about your thoughts on the results of that network screening for the hotspot analysis. Kind of related to the equity and public participation, we are seeking the applications for the Community Advisory Committee. They're on the website. We are also looking for people for community ambassadors. That's more to be like a member of the project team to really help with community outreach. And the deadline for both of those is next Friday, June 14th. Finally, task 6, which is listed twice there, it's really just one task. We have encountered an issue with the demonstration projects coming from a federal highway requirement that we didn't know was going to exist when we started the project. And so we are actually looking at removing those from the scope and instead maybe looking at the same locations, but developing concepts and doing public input as part of that, possibly doing road safety audits, but not implementing anything on the ground. That is where the problem originates. So we will be just doing a scope change with the consultant for that piece. And that's all I have.
Is there, when you talk about the targets, for vision, like what do we mean by Vision Zero? Can it be different in Manans than it is in Albany, or does it have to be the same for the whole, project?
We should adopt one at this table.
Okay,
But if you wanted to, if a municipality wanted to submit for like a vision, SS4A implementation program, I think it might be better to go with the regional one, but you would want to adopt your own, you know, if you didn't agree with that, or your council didn't agree with it, they might want to adopt their separate one before you submitted your implementation grant through SS4A.
I guess I'm looking at, different environments, right? So our issue right now in Albany is pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. It is pretty rare for us to have a crash that results in serious injuries only because people are going slower, right? But we are having, we've had a huge uptick in pedestrian fatalities this year. I think I'm already up to 7. This year, might only be 6, but there's just been this huge uptick, with the last one being an individual walking down the middle of the street at night, and he just fell on the ground and was run over. He had a 0.31 blood alcohol level. You know, so it's different types of scenarios. But I think for us, that's something we really need to get our arms around. Is why are we seeing so many more pedestrian serious injuries or fatalities? But in a community where people might be moving faster, fewer pedestrians, it's more through traffic, it might be looking at the crashes. So I just didn't know how flexible it was gonna be, but obviously part of what is being done is we're collecting the data, right?
I mean, I think the target, there may be different measures in different locations to reduce the fatalities and serious injuries, but the target may not need to be as different as the measures
Okay.
to get there.
It's sure gonna be like the educational component too, because in Troy, it's like I noticed there are a lot of people who are bicycling or they're walking, they're not looking. They're walking across the street when the light's red for them and they're not paying attention because they're in their phone. And is there gonna be any kind of an idea for an educational?
Yeah,
program?
the educational and the enforcement and the other components are gonna be part of the recommendations coming out of that project. That is included in the scope.
Is there going to be, if your community doesn't go along with the regional policy, is there like a candy and a stick? If you don't go along with it, then there's some sort of restriction later on, it's going to stop you from getting funding or granting or something of that nature?
I mean, not that SS4A, yeah, but otherwise.
I mean, the whole purpose of this is that it gives you a higher point when you're going for funding.
Funding is right.
So you know, like, we're looking to implement the ped safety plan for Washington Park.
Right.
And so having a vision 0 would give us a higher score when we go to try to get $5 million to actually do the implementation. So there is an incentive to go along, because you're not, if you don't have this, my understanding is, at least for the foreseeable future, you're not gonna score as well. And all these highway infrastructure dollars are available, so.
There is, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did I say that right? I mean, that's what I was told.
Sounds good.
That's why we did it.
Sounds good.
So,
Definitely for SS4A.
Yeah,
for that grant.
yeah.
so it's a carrot,
Yeah.
but not a stick. You don't get penalized, but there's a.
Well, it's hard to be against the goal of having 0 fatalities.
Right, yeah.
Well, if your community doesn't have that problem, I mean, yeah, I mean.
Yeah,
You're,
but you'd still want to adopt that, right?
yeah, you can adopt it, but you don't want to go.
And you do that, and now you've got a couple of checks when you go for the grant application to do whatever you might want to do in your. Say,
Plus, just because you don't have a problem now, doesn't mean you're not gonna have a problem 10 years down the road.
Right. And there's just an element of randomness,
Yeah,
it's like
so-
you're talking about.
Linda's
the big
point,
uptake.
it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we had a man who got out of his car to go pick up food that he had ordered on Larch Street, and just walked right into traffic, and his children were in the car. He was killed. I mean, it's just,
People are not paying
Yeah.
attention to traffic when they step, I see it all the time when I'm in Troy, it's like,
Oh, it's a lot of jaywalking, it's a lot of
Yep.
distraction. Things that didn't exist before, where you use the sidewalk and you cross at the proper
people,
intersection.
they're not walking on the sidewalk anymore either, they're walking right smack down the driving
It's not
lane.
gonna
and-
matter whether you're going 20 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour if you're not paying attention.
yeah.
I agree with it, I agree with that.
Thank you, Carrie. So Chris, did you have anything else to add for regional transportation planning initiatives?
I do. I have 3 things I want to highlight. First is our Tools of the Trade event in Saratoga County for human service transportation providers is on June 20th. Registration is still open. I have a flyer here. There's flyers out there if you're interested. To reiterate what Carrie said, we're still seeking applicants to serve on our SS4A Community Advisory Committee and to serve as community ambassadors. As we said, there's been paid positions, and applications for both are due next Friday, June 14th. And you can visit www.capitalregion visionzero.org for more information. And finally, the Transportation Council has a new website that we will be launching on Friday. I can just bring this up here. See it. Can you see can you see the, Stephen, can you see the website screen?
Not just yet.
People need you.
I know you. All right, hopefully you're seeing it now. For the
That's
folks in the here, this is just a sneak preview. You'll be, probably have some type of communication when it's released. A little more streamlined, hopefully a little easier to find things, a little more current on stuff that we're working on now. So encourage you to explore it when it's available. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Larry?
Okay, I know we're getting close to adjournment, so let me, see if I can buzz through this list pretty quickly. The Regional Planning Commission has been very active, in no particular order. Broadband, we're working with counties, on a continual basis to, develop, planning and grant applications to build out broadband infrastructure so that we can better serve areas that are underserved or not served at all with internet capability. Looking at the environment, a couple of items are climate pollution reduction grant program. We're working with a variety of stakeholders, including here at the Transportation Council, to develop the Regional Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. That's an EPA-funded project. We're shooting for a completion date at the end of 2025. We've already completed, as I mentioned in previous meetings, the Priority Climate Action Plan, and that sort of sets the stage for that next step here. With regard to the Clean Energy Communities Program, we're working, our outreach coordinators are working with communities in round 3 of that program. To date, the Regional Planning Commission has helped communities secure over $5 million in match-free grant funds for clean energy projects. Shifting over to housing, which has been sort of a hot button issue around the state. The Regional Planning Commission very recently released a Capital Region Housing Affordability Study. That study compares renter wages against average rental costs to see if there's a gap or there's a disparity there. And then as an added analytical element, the study also compares median household income against the cost to purchase a home using the median sale value of homes in a particular geographic area. Something kind of interesting, there's on the website now a land cover change analysis that you might find very interesting. It's like a story map, and it documents 10 years of changes in land cover for the region. It's an interactive platform, and it details parcel level land cover changes throughout the region. Just a couple of event items to note. We are hosting an MS4 workshop for stormwater management at University of Albany. That's on June 26th, and then on October 18th, where the Regional Planning Commission is hosting its annual planning and zoning workshop, and that will be conducted at Hudson Valley Community College.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Larry? Carm?
Just a couple of things. We talked about mobility hubs. You may have read also that we are in discussions to purchase the Gazette property, Daily Gazette, on Maximum Urban Schenectady. It's directly adjacent to our Schenectady facility, so we will be able to double the size of our footprint. And the building, I've worked at CDTA for a long time. I've driven by it 500,000 times and never realized the infrastructure that's available in the building that is almost perfectly suited to our needs. So anticipate that that's going to happen sometime over the summer. Season 8 of CDPHP cycle. Can't believe it's been 8 years since we started that. We're up to almost 650 bikes 100 stations throughout the region. Probably the most popular of our services. Just a remarkable success story. And then last but not least, our ridership finished the fiscal year, which ended in March, 20% higher than the year before. And the first 2 months of this year, April and May, are 20% higher than the same period last year. So I think the work we're doing at this table is working. The region is shifting a bit and using different modes of transportation. Now it's up to us to make it even better.
Thank you. Any questions for Farm? DOT. What do you got for us?
Thank you. A couple staff changes to announce. We have a new Chief People Officer is the branding for this. It's Assistant Commissioner for Administrative Services. It's a woman coming from the private sector, Erin Jager, but the branding term now is Chief People Officer, and she starts next Monday. We're also losing our planning and program manager, Bob Rice, that many of you know, who's retiring in a couple of weeks. And our regional permit engineer has left that job to go to planning, and he's being replaced by Wyatt Martin, who's coming from the Saratoga residency to be the new permit engineer. In terms of weddings, we've had 4 weddings in the last couple months. 2 of those are multi-site pavement resurfacing jobs that have been awarded. And there's 2 that have been let but not awarded yet. One is a interstate overhead sign structure job, and the I-90 pavement resurfacing corporate woods to I-787 should be awarded soon. 2 upcoming weddings. We have a bridge multi-site preservation job and a roundabout coming to Saratoga County at Route 29 and Rowland Avenue. And the Livingston Avenue Bridge has had the notice to proceed given May 20th, and that is now moving forward.
Great.
That's it.
Yay. Any questions for Mike? Bill? Recommended through authority.
Just looking throughway, the paving, rehabilitation paving, full depth and repair work being done between 25 and 26 is underway. Full depths and parts of all but taken care of now. They were for milling. We spent earlier last week, at the end of last week, milling underneath the 25 interchange bridge to get us a little more underclearance. When towards the end of the project, we're going to actually jack the bridge up a little higher to try and gain more, almost 5 inches of underclearance. Hopefully the bridge stops getting hit. We don't lose it. Other than that, it's just going along.
Right? Any questions? Do we have someone from the airport authority? I don't think so. I saw Pat from the port.
Looks like he's.
Yeah.
He signed off.
Yeah, it looks like that's it.
And any regional local planning activities?
I'm just gonna refer you to the table of the status table of the state regional local planning activities instead of going through them individually, but if anybody has any individual questions about those projects, obviously reach out to us.
And on the agenda, there's a list of upcoming meetings and events. I just want to add quickly that we did have a meeting with some folks after there was a CEG event at GE. That was a great event and really looking at what they're looking to do for the future, but there is a very significant freight issue of getting freight to the Port of Albany. And so I think, I've been on this board for 11 years, have never talked about the impact on shipping of freight when we build a roundabout or when we build bike lanes and put up Jersey barriers to protect a bike lane. And so we are having an impact, and I know Chris is gonna, and Sandy was at that meeting, but really elevating that conversation so that we at least understand the consequences of some of the things that we're looking at to make our streets safer and more user friendly and pedestrian friendly, but we also don't want to negatively impact economic development and our ability to continue to attract manufacturing business. So it was very eye-opening, and we have some work to do.
Very interesting.
So with that, Is there any other business anyone wants to raise? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Secondly.
or adjourn?